All right, well, welcome everybody. My name's Bruce Hassler. I'm the CTO here at RevRoad. Joining me is Jason. I'll let him introduce himself real quick.
Hey everybody, so I'm Jason Caldwell. I'm the COO here at RevRoad, Chief Operations Officer. So we can talk just a few seconds about our backgrounds. So for me, I came out of the military world. I came out of BYU and joined the Army, and I actually became an Arabic linguist and a signals intelligence non-commissioned officer. So I was doing intelligence work, and then I was out in Washington, D.C. in the Washington metro area for about 15 years doing government contracting, supporting various government agencies out there, either through translation services or managing large programs. I ended up working for Boeing out there, running large programs for them in support of those government agencies. And after that, came out here and was blessed to be able to start up a new business with my co-founder there, Bruce, and he'll talk about himself there for a second, and then we'll get into RevRoad. So Bruce, your turn.
Cool, thanks, Jason. So I think the thing we learned from Jason is don't mess with him or I'll have him hunt you down. So my name's Bruce. I've been into computers for a while, graduated with a computer science degree from BYU. And then shortly after graduating, I started working for kind of a smallish company called Parent Link, and we made education technology. And so we were one of the first companies that put kind of apps on the map for schools and school districts to use. Also had a big communication platform that we would send out lots of phone calls and emails and text messages and those types of things to help parents make sure that they were involved with their child's education. So did that for a long time. I spent a lot of my career in ed tech. And then one of the cool things was we were able to sell that company to a much larger company. You guys have probably heard of it, a company called Blackboard. I worked with them for about 3 years and ran the communication space for K through 12 there. Learned a lot of great things, but ultimately learned that I wasn't really cut out to work for a big, huge organization. And so left Blackboard to come with Jason to start RevRoad, and really excited to share with you guys today a little bit about what RevRoad does, and also answer any questions that you guys have about just how to attack the technology market in general. What does it take to get a job? What are employers looking for? So excited for Q&A session at the end of the meeting. So first of all, let's talk about RevRoad and the reason why we started RevRoad. The big reason is here. We could get into a lot of different things, but it's hard starting companies. And the statistics show that most people that go and they start a company, if you're an entrepreneur and you start a company, there's a super high probability that you're not going to make it. So that's one of the things that we decided to do. These are some of the reasons why it's hard. Right. And so I don't know if those that are watching the video today, I don't know if you've ever tried to start a company or maybe even work for a startup or even just a normal company, but just doing business in general is hard. And you throw in some of the environmental factors like COVID that's happening, it can become almost impossible. And so these are a lot of things that entrepreneurs worry about, like, how do I market my product? Do I have enough money? How do I actually build it? How do I get feedback on it? How do I close deals? And so RevRoad was created to help to solve that problem. So what is RevRoad? RevRoad, we have kind of a unique business model. A lot of people have heard of groups called venture capital, or they're organizations that go and they give startup companies or other companies money. And so they invest money into those companies. A lot of you have heard of agencies, like marketing agencies are really big, or development agencies are really big, where you could go pay somebody money to go get a service. And so RevRoad, we didn't want to really do either of those things. We've seen lots of companies that were able to raise lots of money and they still failed because they couldn't execute. And then we've also seen companies that don't have the money to be able to pay for agency services, or we've also seen companies that have paid for agency services and they're just not very good. And so what we decided to do with RevRoad was to take the best of both of those worlds and smash those together. And we've created RevRoad, which is a venture services firm. And so what we do is we look for high growth startups, and instead of investing money into those, we invest services. And so these are some of the services that we do here at RevRoad. We do strategy, marketing, capital, legal, development, sales, video, finance, engineering, provide mentors, help people with systems, and also help people to acquire talent. And so most of you are probably the most interested about the development service. That's the service, one of the services that I'm over. And so I've got a small group of software developers that work for me. And as we go and we find companies that we can invest in, as we can help them grow, if they have the need to either build a product to take to market, or if they have an existing product, maybe they have a development team already and they just want to go faster, or they want to make their product better, we'll deploy our resources to go help with that. And it's been super cool. It was very different coming from an environment where, initially, like right out of college, all I cared about was the company that I worked for. We had one product, and then we made a couple modules that sat on top of that. And then when I was working at Blackboard, we had like 10 products that I was working with, to now where we've got a lot of different companies and a lot of things going on at once. And so it's been kind of a fun environment to learn how to do that.
Well, and along with that, Bruce, so if any of you are out there, I know many of you are at the V School and looking to come out of there. If you do have ideas for companies that you want to start, these are all the different areas that you need to think about when you start a company. Many of you will have that expertise in that development area, but you won't have expertise in sales or in finance or in creating videos. And so these are some of the gaps that RevRoad helps to fill as people start up their companies and look to scale. So we're looking for those companies that can scale as well, because we do make that investment on an equity exchange. So we need to be able to get that return back as we make that investment with our people. So just as you're looking to start businesses as well, you can also take a look at all these different areas and all these different expertises that you need to have as you start a business.
Yep. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for that, Jason. And so that's kind of what we do. That's our business model. That's how it works. I think our next slide shows the team. This might be a little bit out of date, but this is the group that we have to do that. And you can see I'm kind of partial to the software engineers and software developers that's on this screen, because that's what I work with. But we've got a really talented group of individuals that can help with all facets of a business. It's super fun. And so that's RevRoad. That's what we do. What I wanted to show is, I don't think this is up to date. I think we've got a few more companies of this, but this is our portfolio. So these are all the companies over the past about 3 years that we've invested in. And so RevRoad kind of went from something that was in concept of hey, we can go build this team and we can do this, to where we've been able to have I don't know, probably 500 or 600 companies that have applied, that have said, we'd love to be part of RevRoad. We'd love for you to invest in our company. And those companies will come and pitch to us. They'll show us why they're so cool. And these are the ones that we actually picked to invest in. And so it's cool to have this portfolio that's as varied as it is, and to have, worked on a lot of this. I think we've probably done, there's about 38 companies in our portfolio right now. And from a development and engineering standpoint, we've probably worked on projects for, I don't know, probably 25, 26 of these. And so over the past 3 years. And so it's just been super fun to be able to do that. So that's RevRoad. Wanted to talk a little bit about some of the technology, because I thought you guys might be interested in that. Everybody asks, like, what is the best development stack? And I'm sure you guys have either asked that question or somebody's asked you that question. There's not a real great answer to it, unfortunately. Some of the things that we've done and some of the tools that we use, if we've got companies that are doing a very simple web app, a lot of the times we'll use a platform like Django and Python with MySQL on the back end, and we'll host that in an elastic beanstalk environment in AWS, right? So I think we've done probably, 6 or 7 different projects using that specific tech stack. But I say that we've done that. We've also done, for some of the companies on here, we've done native iOS and native Android apps, right?
Bruce, what's one of the more obscure ones you've had to do?
More obscure. I don't know if we've done anything super obscure. We have done, I don't know, I'll just kind of go through some of the different technologies that we've used. We've probably done 3 or 4 different projects with a web stack with Laravel and PHP, also using MySQL on the back end. We've done projects where one of the things that we've started to like, I used to always hate the idea of doing these cross-platform apps that would work on iOS or Android. But we've done quite a few projects already using a technology called Flutter, which was developed by Google, that allows us to write apps that end up running natively in both iOS and Android, and very high performance, very scalable. In fact, that's what Mentorly is built on. We actually helped work with Mentorly. I don't know how long ago. It's been close to a year ago, I think. But the Mentorly app is built on that technology, and it's actually really, really good. And so if I were to be asked today, would I write an app native on both platforms? I would probably say no. I'd probably go with something, with something like Flutter. Other things that we've done, we've worked with a couple of the companies on here with, front end JavaScript frameworks like React, with Vue, and we've used, things like Microsoft SQL on the back end of those. And so we've kind of done a little bit of everything. And so it's been cool to be able to do that. So.
Yeah, and so you can see where Bruce has done quite a bit of jujitsu, of just making sure that he's got some knowledge in all those areas. Because if you look at this slide here with the different types of companies that we have that come on board, each one have come with different assets to our portfolio, and we add 3 or 4 more companies every quarter. So we're constantly growing. So we're always looking for those different types of skill sets so we can support these different companies coming in. So as far as looking at career tracks, something like what Bruce has, you can see he's had to master, or maybe not master, but at least be familiar with and know how to use all these different platforms. So it's important to always be learning and always be growing, in order to get to a place where like Bruce is at.
So cool. And one other thing that I'll share, and then we'll just kind of open it up to questions and things like that. I think probably the thing that I've learned the most, just about development and business in general, isn't even so much from the technology side. It's about what do you build to actually take to the market. The companies that I've seen that have been successful really know what do their users want, or what needs to exist in the market for that product to work. The companies that really struggle want to just do everything. There's an idea that they have that pops into their head, and they'll just go code that up. Or there's a customer that wants this, and the successful companies and the successful products that I've worked on are ones that have been, really focused on providing, a few features and doing that very, very well, as opposed to trying to build something that, has 1,000 features and everything in the kitchen sink. And so, takes a lot of discipline to figure out what those features are and how those should work. But it's definitely worth it. So anyway, with that, just wanted to open it up to questions and see if anyone has any questions for either me or Jason. Jason also has a lot of experience with helping companies with strategy and some of those same types of things that I was talking about. So maybe we can kind of both tag team that. If you've got any questions about specific technology or about languages, or what are employers looking for. I actually do quite a bit of hiring for these portfolio companies, and so I get to do a lot of interviews as well. So if you've got questions about like how does that work, I can answer those as well. So we'll turn time over to questions. And
so I see the first question on there is from Xavier Bradley. Hey, Xavier, thanks for that.
okay.
Says, are y'all only looking for developers? The answer to that's no. Like right now, we're looking for a graphic designer. So for RevRoad itself, we have all those different areas. So there's different times we'll be looking for marketing professionals. So that's PR, graphic design, website design, the UX UI. We kind of cross-purpose between our development team and our marketing team. So we'll be looking for people with those skills, and then Bruce with the developers. With we have finance positions that we look for, sales positions. That's pretty big too. So Bruce, if you want to talk about some of what you've done for our portfolio companies as far as developers, that'd be great.
Yeah. So as far as like RevRoad specifically is concerned, right this instant, we're not looking for developers, but there are a couple portfolio companies that I'm helping to interview people for, where we're looking for probably some mid-level developers, people that have had 3 to 5 years experience, things like that. I think there might be someone else in their portfolio that's looking for more entry-level programmers. And so we are doing that. And just to kind of share with you a little bit about kind of how that works and the way that I approach interviewing, that might be helpful. So my interviewing style and techniques, it's pretty simple. So as I look for developers, I follow kind of, I don't know if any of you have heard of Joel Spolsky before, but it's kind of a super popular blogger in the tech space. He helped start a company called FogBuzz way back in the day. But then he went, after doing that, he went and started a company that you guys might have heard of called Stack Overflow. So he's one of the founders of Stack Overflow, which is, I don't know, by de facto, the most popular website for developers. And so he wrote an article on hiring programmers and basically boiled it down to 2 things. If you're trying to hire somebody, you want to look for 2 things. That's people that are smart and they get things done. And so as I approach interviewing, that's kind of the way that I approach it. So typically what I'll do is I'll kind of try and get to know the candidate a little bit. What do they like to do? Like, go through their resume. Where did they go to school? How well did they perform? And that's more to get people comfortable, and so I can get a feel for how they are as a person. But the main thing is, kind of the coding section of the interview. And I'd probably say this to everyone: if you go apply for a job to be a coder and they don't actually ask you to code as part of the interview, it's probably, their development team probably isn't awesome. And so, because it's so hard to figure out how good people are without having them code. It's also hard to find out how good people are even if you do have them code. But I usually have people go through 2 or 3 different coding exercises as part of the interview. I'm not a big fan of like coding with a whiteboard. I like to see, how well does somebody handle a keyboard and handle a computer? How fast can they type? And, some of those types of things. The same type of thing that you'd be able to evaluate if they worked with you for a couple weeks. And so I usually focus a lot on that. But, as being an interviewee, I think the main thing to do is just, probably the thing that people struggle with the most is just like being super nervous and not being able to relax, because it's fairly hard to perform well in an interview, much less code halfway decent if you're nervous. And so I would say with that, just like practice, just like talk to people, do fake interviews, practice some of the popular coding exercises. Most likely you're not going to practice the one that they ask you, but you can get used to, kind of putting your brain on, kind of on go and saying, oh, code this thing up, and then practicing that. So hopefully those tidbits are helpful as you do interviewing and as you, kind of work your way into the workforce.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bruce. Okay, we got quite a few questions coming in. So Chase Rogers, thanks, Chase. So when one of your developers is not assigned to a client you are investing in, do you have in-house projects for them to work on?
That's a great question. We rarely have that happen. So I try and keep my development team oversubscribed. And so I think it's important, like, and if you were to ask me about sprint planning, for instance, I would say, you know, oversubscribe or overplan your sprint, just because there's so much wasted time when people are waiting for things to do. I would rather err on the side of giving people too much work than not enough. And so we do that as well as we invest in companies. You know, usually what we'll do is if a company comes to us and they pitch to us and we think it's a great opportunity and they need development services, as part of that investment, I'll describe that as a bank of hours. Be like, okay, if we invest in your company, you know, we'll do 800 hours towards your development. And one, that really just helps to quantify, you know, one, what is that investment? And two, it helps make a clear delineation of when, you know, like when are we finished with it? It's just too hard to do that with doing that with like a scope of work or something like that. But if we ever have time that we have extra, one of the things I do is I look at our portfolio and I say, who can we help move, you know, the needle on the most? And then we'll assign developers to go work on that. And we have done some internal projects. The system, the application system that we use as part of RevRoad, our development team built all of that. We built the, you know, kind of the scoring process for those companies and all of that. And so we've built dashboards for KPIs for a portfolio company. So there are some things that we do internal, but we try and not do a ton of that, because anything that we do internal, it means that we're not investing it in the companies that are in our portfolio. So
Right.
Long-winded answer to an easy question, but.
Good one. Okay, Zach Heckert. Hi, Zach. Thanks for coming on. Says, how often do we look for new developers? Can we talk more about what it's like to work on a variety of potentially very different projects for very different clients? And then who feeds the money dog? So I could take the money dog one if you want.
Sure.
Yeah, the money dog. So the way RevRoad works, obviously, since we invest in these companies on equity, we're looking for harvest events with our portfolio companies, whether they're doing really well and paying dividends, then we participate in that. Or if there's an acquisition or a sale, then we'll participate in that as well. So that's how we feed the money dog. So we get those returns, and we have in our business model a plan for RevRoad to continue operations, so we can hire, expand our teams, and continue to provide those services. And then the returns are passed back on to our investors. So that's how the money dog gets fed at RevRoad.
Yeah, and initially, just like a VC firm would raise and do a round of investment so that they could raise a fund, we kind of did the same thing for RevRoad. And so we went out and we raised a fairly large fund, because all of those people on that slide that you saw before aren't cheap, right? And so we raised a large round of funding so that we could pay for those services while we were in the process of building up our portfolio and having those events, those acquisitions and things like that. So other questions were about, one, what is it like working on all the projects? And kind of two answers to that. One, it's super fun. You never get bored. And you get to learn a whole lot of new stuff. And I think that's both the positive and the negative. On the flip side, it's hard, right? It's like when we bring in a new company, like we've got to figure out what is the market and what is the stuff that we build, right? And so, which is probably one of the most important things when you're building a product, is kind of learning the market and learning what are the most important features. And we do work with the founders on that. We expect the founders to have, lots of domain knowledge in the market that they're in. But we have to pick that up as well. I'm thinking of, I don't even know if they're on this list. We're working with a company right now called DineXpert. They're making basically a platform that allows people that own restaurants to be able to buy direct into a bunch of different suppliers. Because the way that it is right now, if I'm a restaurant, I have to go negotiate those contracts and I have to go find the best suppliers and all of that. And so they've created a platform to where they can kind of hook those two up together fairly easy. And the learning curve for just trying to figure out what the terminology is on how this, how those those two sides of the market work, it takes like a week just to learn the terminology, right? And so there's definitely a learning curve from a business standpoint. And from a tool standpoint, there's a learning curve too. And so that's why we do have a few kind of go-to languages and tech stacks that if we start from scratch, these are the tools that we would use. And then as we do investments, Jason asked what was the weirdest thing that we've ever done. If there's something that we don't think that we'd be able to be a good fit for, a lot of the times we'll try and help them, either find their own resources or just pass, right? Because what we don't want to do is try and do an investment in a company where we can't really move the needle. And so, there's kind of this fine line of saying, well, we'll say yes to everything, or we'll be, kind of choose things that we can do a good job at. So.
Cool. All right. Next one's from Victor. I know we're getting a little short on time, but Victor Navarro and then Jonathan Dobson, I'm going to be able to combine those two together, I think. It says, which are the programming languages that are most likely to get us hired, and what tech stack do we need to know to be qualified to work as a developer at RevRoad?
So RevRoad specific. So one of the go-to platforms for us, like I said, if we're doing web apps, we do Python Django. I've been coding in Python for a long time, 20 plus years. I think it's an incredible language. I've seen its kind of transformation over the years. It's used for everything from web development to AI to, people use it a lot for number crunching and stats and things like that. So I think it's like, I'm a big Python proponent, and I understand that not everybody is, and that's fine. But I think that's a great, I think it's, you can rapidly develop things. And so as far as getting hired at RevRoad specifically, I think that's good. And the other thing is getting hired for a portfolio company where we've built something using that stack that translates to. So the company that I just mentioned, DynExpert, they're actually they're one of the companies that's looking for one of these mid-level developers. And so we'll be looking for tools that are kind of similar to that. So I think that's good. A lot of the JavaScript libraries, kind of client-side JavaScript libraries are great. We do a lot of stuff with Vue as well. So Vue is probably my favorite JavaScript library if we were doing just client-side stuff. One, because if you look at the growth curve of Vue, it's just off the charts. And I think it's a little bit more simpler than like React or Angular. If you pick any of those three, you can't really go wrong though. And so it's one of those things where, is there one that's best? Probably not, but I think that's good.
Okay, great. I actually probably could throw this one in there too from Colin, from Kevin, is kind of what level do you usually look for when you're hiring a developer?
It's a good question.
Experience level.
Yeah, I like, for an entry-level developer, I like for them to have, either come from like a 4-year university and have done well, and have done, and regardless of whether students are coming from university or like coding camps, I really like for there to be like something that they've worked on in their personal time. And so if somebody comes to me, and I'm a little bit partial to BYU because I'm an alum there, but so there's this great BYU student that comes and interviews, but all they've done is schoolwork. I'm not super interested. If they've got a good GPA and they've done some cool side projects on their own, I really like that. Because to me, when you do work outside of the classroom, whether it's a boot camp or whether it's a university, when you do stuff on your own, one, it means you're interested in the material. And two, that shows me that from an employer standpoint, you're more likely to, be more than just a 9 to 5 clock in and clock out person. The best programmers in the world are ones that they really enjoy programming and they do it all the time. And that's not meaning that you have to work 80 hours a week doing programming for your job, but it means that, that you'll do stuff on the weekends or you'll do stuff after work just because you like it and you're good at it.
Hey guys, we've come up on time over here,
Cool.
which you've just done such an incredible job, and thank you so much for the amazing presentation. I wanted to, for those folks that are interested in a position at RevRoad, How should they apply? What is the next steps that they should take?
No, it's a good question. So like I said, right now, this instant, we're not hiring for RevRoad. There are a couple of portfolio companies that we're hiring for. You can go to the careers page on RevRoad.com, and there's a way to kind of submit your application there. And so I would recommend doing that. And then, even if there's not something that's available right now, it can just kind of hang on to your resume if something does pop up. So
Yeah, and along with that, on our website, there's a link to all of our portfolio companies, that they have their own websites and their own careers pages. So just getting to know our portfolio companies and seeing these are all up and coming companies doing really fun and interesting things. So you can go there and learn more about those companies as well from our website.
This is awesome. So I posted that link in the comments so everyone can see it there. And then, it looks like there is an open position on the RevRoad careers page that shows, internships, and it's kind of an open position where it's, open all the time. And so it sounds like if you feel like you're a fit for anything or wanted to talk to the RevRoad team too, you can submit your resume through that link too. Well, this is sweet, guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity to learn more about RevRoad, and for everyone joining. Looking forward